everyone, this video is going to be a little different. We're going to just talk through a sortie I had where I did 4 drops, and we had a breakthrough at the end of it, and I think a lot of people want to see just the basics of what I'm doing to do these drops, and maybe some things that I'm thinking about as I'm considering moving into an area to put down troops, and how would I pick them up, and what am I looking for. So right now this picks up where I dropped off 3 groups of standard soldiers, and to the south of us there's a camp of enemy troops that we're attacking at the moment. So I'm doing an orbit around just north of that area, but I noticed when I was looking around that there is a camp to the north. So while I'm doing my orbit, I've got a timer going, and the troop drop timer starts when the first person gets out of the aircraft and you land. So with that in mind, if you have a stopwatch sort of thing going on, you can time it so that you fly out for 1:30 seconds, and then you know at that point I need to fly back. And so you can line it up pretty good where you'll be inbound towards the target, and then it'll blow up, and then you'll be already starting your landing flare, because the troops generally stay in the same spot. So right now we got the first camp that was to the south of us destroyed, so now we're picking up our troops, and like I said, I know now that there's a camp to the north that I've seen visually, so I'm going to go and pick them up and then take them over there. The peculiar thing here is, if you look to the south there's the smoke from the camp that we just attacked. Once we lift up some after the hover pickup, I noticed there's not only that set of smoke there to the right of the screen, but beyond that, if you look kind of towards the center, maybe to the left, you'll see that there is additional smoke. As we lift off here, I'm going to turn towards the left, but I can see some smoke right there. It's really faint. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but it's kind of peeking over the horizon. So at the moment, I'm not sure if we got lucky and that was a set of targets that we maybe destroyed, but it seems like it's a little too far away, so I'm not sure. And I also don't know if there's other helicopters operating in the area. I also don't know if that was a plane crash. If you looked, I was checking my chat just to see if I noticed anybody that had crashed recently. So at the moment we're going to head towards the northern camp, and in the back of my mind I already am thinking I need to investigate that set of smoke that I didn't anticipate and see if it is a camp. So this is great because I can approach here to the northern camp, drop my troops off, and I know I can fly a 1:30 seconds south, and I'm probably going to be able to see a better view of what that smoke was coming from, and then I'll come back and go pick these guys up. So when you do the troop drops, you kind of should think like this, where if you're able to fly around, like if there's not a lot of enemy aircraft, then you don't want to just waste that time. Okay, you have 3 minutes, so when you're doing an assault, you drop the troops off and then you fly out 1:30 seconds to the point, kind of just get recon of where you're going to go next, right? Because the hard thing about the hip is, if there's no recon, it's really difficult to not get yourself killed over like terrain. Even this terrain is generally flat, but you can see here there's these hills that we're using to put the troops in. So when I'm approaching this current drop point, I'm looking to see if there's any slight hill that I could use that's just going to mask the height of the helicopter, so that we can get in close. If it's completely flat, that's totally rare. I mean, it does happen in some parts of the map, but even here this is relatively flat, but there's still a lot of small rolling hills. So I almost tip here because I had too much left movement going on. But yeah, as I was saying, I like to sneak in as close as I can, but to do that there's a trade-off. You have to fly a little higher. So something to consider is, while it is good to avoid detection, to fly low like this, it's kind of contextual, right? Because right now I don't want to be seen by the enemy because they're going to be able to shoot at me. And in fact, I think I'm flying low enough, but I think I get shot at because I kind of peek over that hill, I think, a little bit too much. Yeah, I'm getting shot at by cannon fire from the tanks. So, as I was saying, this is contextual. I don't want to be high here because they can see me and they're starting to engage me. But eventually I'm going to have to fly higher because right now, as you can see, I can't see really in front of me because these low hills. The risk is that you're going to go over a low hill and you're going to roll right into something that has a Vulcan or all the other machine guns or tanks with their main guns, and then it's game over. So we're going to build some space here. Luckily the smoke's still going from the southern camp that we destroyed. We're going to fly towards that, and I already know to the left of that a little bit is where I want to be. That's where the other set of smoke was, and now it's kind of obscured by a hill, so we're going to have to eventually fly higher. So I'm starting to pick up some altitude here, and still can't see that thing. I know I am happy to see that there is a hill behind it, so if there were troops there, we would attack using that hill that's to the north of it, because it seems to obscure the whole target area, but it's pretty close. So I can see that there's something there. I couldn't identify what it was when I saw it. I just assumed the worst, that it was a live set of vehicles that could potentially have some anti-aircraft capacity. So I just immediately turn away from it and then get low again because I don't want to be shot at. And also by now the timer is getting to the point where we need to head back and pick up the troops. Another thing that's contextual is once you've flown high in a region, then you're watching the lay of the land, and if you're pretty observant, you can feel safe that you've spotted all the things that you would potentially spot. So then at that point, you're not worried if you're within that realm that you've seen to just fly really low. The thing that you should do is, if it's a new area that you're flying into, you should fly at some altitude. Of course, you've got to keep in mind that there's potential for enemy aircraft to see you, and I think if you go high enough, enemy early warning radars can detect you. But it is a trade-off, The great thing about the eastern part of the map is, in some areas, there's not a lot of airfields, so it is kind of rare that somebody would come out this way with a jet to try and get you. If you were in the area around like Damascus or something, there's just way too many little airfields, and obviously you're going to be hunted down pretty easily. Alright, so now we're coming up to pick up the northern attack. This is the second drop that's concluded, and we don't have to be too crazy with the landings here. Like, I like to come in fast, but really you could take your time, and even you'll see from the other drops that I do, doing the drops, I try to be pretty methodical, and if I need to go slow to like creep up a hill, I'll do that. There's no real need to go crazy fast if you're not being shot at, and especially when you're really close to enemy forces and you're just using a hill that's maybe 10 meters high, you really have to go slow and kind of hover your way into the best spot. And then keep in mind how you're going to get out of that area but stay low and still stay hidden. So if you need to go slow and get out of that area, that's a smart thing to do as well. So when it comes to these troop pickups, I like to do the hovers because I just like to stay airborne. It's good practice. The way the hover thing works for the pickups is you have to be within 75 meters of the person that's firing the flare. And every time that flare fires, it's checking to see if you meet the parameters for a pickup. And so that first parameter is that 75 meter bubble around the flare. And then the second parameter is the speed of your helicopter's got to be under like 1 meter per second. So if you meet both those criteria, every time the flare goes off, then once that check's complete, they'll load into your helicopter. So now we're heading back south, and we're heading... Some jets going by. Okay, so now we're heading south, and we are going past the camp that we initially destroyed. The problem is now there's no more smoke, and not a big deal for the camp that we did attack, because they're kind of out in the open. It's easy to spot. But now I'm not sure where that set of targets was, because I know it's off to the left somewhere by a hill, but there's a bunch of little small hills, so now I'm kind of peeking around. Also, check the map periodically to kind of see where you are in regards to how far down the front you may be. It's true that ground units spawn kind of biased towards the side with the enemy front, but it's not necessarily always 100% the way it's going to be, because sometimes the terrain can't utilize where the troops can go really efficiently. Like, for instance, if one border was covered with a forest, they're never going to put ground units in the forest because the trees would just protect them too much. So keep that in mind when you're kind of guessing where you should fly next, to scout for enemy formations. Okay, so now I've seen this camp, and it looks like it was fully destroyed, so I don't know if I did that or if somebody did that prior at the same time, but I know at this point I don't need to go and attack it, right, because it's already dead. So the next thing I want to do is I'm kind of looking around to see if I see any dots. You can see I'm kind of flying a little higher up so I can see over these little hills. Eventually I'll feel comfortable enough where I'm going to build up speed, and we're going to cover a lot of ground. And this is where the hind and the hip excel, because as you burn down the fuel, even if, when I started I was at 50% fuel, you flying at 50% fuel plus a full 3-squad load of troops is an additional like 1,440 kilograms. And you're still able to fly like 250 kilometers per hour, and a lot of times you can go faster than that. When you're flying east into the wind, you're going to be a little slower, but in certain directions with the wind helping you, you can get up to like 280 with troops and no pylons. So we can cover a lot of ground. And the thing that will kill you is if you're covering a lot of ground but you're flying really low. So we're flying kind of high, just so we can kind of peek over things. There's sporadic trees that we have to look out for, but we're not too worried about crashing into anything else. There's not like a lot of hills that are going to jump up at you over here. Every time you get a tick message or something about breakthroughs, it's impossible for all of us to memorize the scheme of the hexes, so just peek at the map so you can get some situational awareness. Alright, I'm looking at groups of trees, and I can now see that further off in the horizon quite a bit ways back is some sort of formation of ground troops. Because I've got that spotted and I was flying a little bit higher, I can see that I'm kind of clear to head over that direction. Eventually I'm going to want to probably pop up another time and just make sure that I'm not driving into an area that I think is clear, but it's really not. So we're utilizing the terrain at this point to kind of stay low and hide from any other low flyers. I can see that there's some sort of vehicles over there, and I can see that there's a hill that kind of runs north from that set of troops. So my plan is, if you can imagine, we're trying to fly at it right now to do troop drops. It's kind of sketchy because it's really flat, so we're going to utilize that terrain. There's a bit of a hill that runs lengthwise towards it, so we'll just get on the backside of that and then I'm pretty confident we will have some sort of cover getting really close to where those troops are. The danger is I need to know on this side of that hill that there's not anything that's going to be able to shoot at us, so I'm kind of taking it easy here and peeking out, making sure that there's not additional ground forces I don't know about that'll shoot us up on this side of the hill. Alright, so I'm starting to decelerate here. I'm going to land and kind of hover my way up as far as I can go, or I feel comfortable with, to get the troops close. And I'm really bad at judging what the 4-kilometer limit for the troop drops looks like. You know, it's a little over 2 nautical miles, I think. So the way that I play it is I try to get as close as possible, and then I'll know that I've got the target and I'm going to get it. So from flying in, I know if we skirt this as much as possible, we're going to be super close, and I know the troops will be effective in assaulting the position, but the thing is, we're super close, so that makes it really dangerous when you're getting out of this area to fly out, to not be shot at. You know, the moment, if we were to peek over that ridge there, we'd be done. So one thing I should say, when I land, I always I tend to hold my brakes, because you can kind of skid around sometimes depending on how you're holding the cyclic, and I don't know, sometimes on slopes it seems like the ground effect is acting in a bizarre way and tilting you certain ways when it really shouldn't. See, as we come up here, we're kind of slightly high, and we peek over, I think, a little bit, and we end up getting shot at quite a bit. Sometimes being slow and deliberate is good, but when you're getting shot at like this, it's nice to have built that speed up already, because now we're really escaping the range and effectiveness of the guns that are shooting at us. When I'm running away from things like this, I'm trying to find anything that's kind of like a downslope that's going to put more terrain behind me and the weapon system that's engaging me. So we're still running downhill, and eventually we'll know that we're safe, just because we would have flown out so far. And that little flag thing gets me every time. At a distance, I don't know what they are used for in the game, but there's been a couple times in the open desert that there's like a dot, and it's that tire and the white flag. And it scares the crap out of me, because if you're flying right at it, it looks like a dot is closing in on you, because you're not seeing any bearing rate from it change. So yeah, if you see something like that, I don't know what it's used for. I don't even try to collide with it, just because I don't want to die if it is collidable. But it seems to be used for some sort of spawning. I don't know. Alright, so we've got our troops down. I've set my timer from when they dropped off, and I'm just cruising now to kind of go towards the south and then go towards the west a little bit, and zigzag our way along the front. We want to try to find the next camp that we're going to go to, so we're not wasting too much time in between these drops here. The good thing about the open desert around this area on the map is it's just like trees, maybe one house or two, a small village, and then, even with the trees, they're like so sporadic. So you can really cue in on any sort of black dots that you see. Over here, I can kind of see one, I think, beyond the ridge over here, up to the left. Oh, I was mistaken, sorry. Yeah, I turned back in because I had the timing going, but I had to extend a little bit because I didn't want to get too close and have them shoot at me and then explode. So they're all dead. Now we're heading back north to go on the other side of that hill where the troops are going to be for us waiting for the exfil. So I couldn't see, I thought I saw, but yeah, at this point I couldn't see any other ground forces as we were doing our big loop. So we're going to have to just kind of wing it after this pickup. So now this is the third drop that was successful. The great thing about this area also is that because it's so relatively flat, you can see jets if they're coming at you, and this is kind of like overcast and hazy, so any high flyers can't see you. But I mean, realistically, most people are flying under the overcast layer here. It's I think it's set at like 8,000 feet or something like that. Alright, so once again, for the pickup, we don't have to be crazy. We don't have to do any wild things to get these guys. They're not in contact with anyone. We're not in contact with anyone. You know, I can gently get myself through the transverse flow and then out of effective translational lift and kind of just hover my way over there. So for the hip, there's that icon or the gauge that's on the top right of the pilot's console. You'll see white bars and stuff extend from it, and it's telling you the directions that you're moving. Eventually you'll go too fast and you won't see it, but it really helps you when you're getting super slow to know if you've got any lateral movement or horizontal movement. I use it all the time for hover pickups because the moment that goes down to 0 and you don't see any white bars, then once the flare fires from the guy on the ground, they're for sure going to be picked up. Once again, checking the map, and we're getting pretty far down this border, so I'm sure that there's going to be a few more groups that we'll be able to come across. For the most part, when I'm searching a border, I like to go down. If you're looking at the grids on the F10 map, I'll try to cover flying down the center of one if it works out really well, and then go all the way down it, and then circle back up, going further in by one more sector, section of grids, and then just doing that sort of pattern. It works for like flat areas like this, but it may not work if you're in an area that's blocked by terrain or like forests, and you know for sure there's not going to be troop formations there. Now I can see that we have a troop concentration to the east a little bit, and I've armed my troops to disembark, and I just discovered that I should be using the macros on my keyboard. If you do that, I greatly recommend it, because you can, with one key press, do a bunch of those radio commands in seconds. Well, what would take you multiple seconds, you can get it done in like 1 second. So now the troops are armed for disembarking, and like I said, we don't have to do anything crazy. I'm slowly decelerating, and I see this nice hill in front of us that totally blocks the view of the enemy as we come in. In fact, it's so good that I think I pop up a little bit because I want to make sure that we're getting as close as I think we are. There we go. Yeah, I get really slow, and I'm kind of just peeking up slightly because I want to see that we're probably within range. I was tempted to go to the ridge beyond the one that we're currently sitting in front of, but just to close the range a little bit more, but pretty confident landing here is okay. And I wasn't positive that I would clear this ridge and get to the other one without exposing the aircraft too much to get shot at. So the moment you touch down, if you have a stopwatch or using your phone, start the timer, because that's where the 3 minutes is going to start. I used to think it was after the last person I got out of the aircraft, and I would time it that way, and it was completely wrong. So, leaving the area, we're trying to be mindful of where that ridge is behind us and staying kind of underneath that. So we'll accelerate away. We know this area that we're flying to is kind of clear because we came from this direction. And I'm just going to fly out and hopefully try to find somebody or another set of targets. So I see fire over there. I'm not sure if there's other helicopters around. I haven't seen any this whole flight, so I'm not sure what's going on. And then I see this dot over here, and that to me looks like a Huey because it's kind of slow. The size of it is really small too, and it would, I don't know, I feel like that would be what a Huey would look like as a dot in the distance. So this is prompting me now to turn back inward because what I want to do now is, the dot didn't seem to be moving to the left or to the right quite a bit, so I'm just assuming it's closing me, and it may have seen me when I was flying high. So now I'm really trying to stay low, but also get back to my troops, because what I want to do now is pick them up. And if that Huey is chasing me, once I pick up the guys, I can go 250 to 280 kilometers per hour. The Huey's not going to keep up with me. So the idea would be to pick up the soldiers and then immediately head north, because I know north, I just flew north to south, so I know up to this point those areas are clear, and I'm not going to roll over anything on accident, because I'm pretty confident from the altitude we were flying that I saw everything that I would see if it was there. So now I'm looking in that direction again to make sure that nothing's coming at us that we don't know about. I'm just waiting for the timer to go down so I can go and turn back in to pick up the troops. If that dot wasn't there, I was going to proceed all the way in that direction towards the southwest and get to the corner of the hex and clear it out to make sure that there was no other troops there. So now we get the message to go and pick up the troops. See the smoke, so that's the 4th drop done. And yeah, we're pretty much at the bottom of the hex, the bottom corner. Alright, so I'm still looking that direction to see if that Huey or dot or whatever it is coming at us. I'm pretty confident because whatever it is that was coming at us is so small still. Now we get the tick was executed and there was a breakthrough, so now our side has captured this hex, which is great. Now we have a new airfield. So all we gotta do is pick up the troops and we can just return to a FARP within this hex, and then the mission's over. So we did pretty good. And then of course, DCS unfortunately crashed. But what are you gonna do? It was still really good. I mean, we did 4 drops. I didn't die. We crashed the desktop, but we didn't crash the helicopter. And we got the breakthrough. I don't know if it was just us operating in that area or if there were other helicopters, but it seemed to be that there were other helicopters focusing on some other hexes. I don't think the AI commander wanted this hex to be attacked, but we attacked it anyways because I feel like you can be more successful in the HIP if you're on the eastern side of the Syria map, with the hills are kind of small and the airfields are kind of spaced out. So you can dip down underneath the hills to get towards contacts, but it's not so flat that you're just going to get wasted because you're out in the open. This does feel like that, but there's really not a lot of jets that operate around here in certain parts of the eastern fringes. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. It's a little different from what we're normally been doing with the tutorial videos and the documentary style videos, but I think that this one's kind of good because it shows you the cockpit view only and what I was looking at and then how I was approaching things. We'll probably have more in-depth a smaller, shorter in duration type videos that talk about some of these things and more succinctly and not just spitballing off the top of my head. So, till next time, bye.